Okay.
Good evening, friends. Welcome to the Lowell House Poemical Society, to this first of our double readings of the fall term, 2022. And this evening we have Maryam Hiradfar, class of 2020, and Roy Onyando, class of 2024, who are going to read to us and engage in conversation about metaphor and poetics and performance. Maryam's poetic tradition derives from the 14th century in the literature, the poetry, the songs of Persian Hafez, whereas Roy's work derives much more currently from the imagery of the Kenyan landscape and terrain and the sentiments and social sensibilities of his people there. So what we have tonight is this wonderful dialogue or dialectic of what you will see is the celestial and the terrestrial, a marriage of heaven and earth, as it were. So, ladies and gentlemen, Maryam and Roy, you're on stage.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you so much, Ben. Thanks everyone for being here. This is a wonderful opportunity to be able to read with Roy. And before anything, I just wanted to say a couple of words about why I find Roy's poetry so powerful. And it's mostly because I think Roy's poetry speaks directly to the immediate. And that is a very, very difficult task, in my opinion. And to just give you a sense of it, to me, it seems like photographing a single flap of a hummingbird, or to be able to capture the flying of a butterfly and a piece of resin. And that is extremely difficult because, of course, the immediate is transient, is fleeting, it's dynamic, and it's changing. But Roy captures that very beautifully and communicates that very beautifully. So, hopefully you'll be able to kind of look for that as Roy reads along. And yes, thank you everyone. And I'll hand it to Roy for the introduction and also for the beginning poem.
Hello. Thanks, Maryam, for the kind words. I've actually engaged with Maryam a couple of times from last semester to this semester, and I also admire her poems, how she can capture so much in so little. So that's something that I really admire from her. But going to the poems, the first reading of today is called The Good Egg. And I wrote it recently, it's like a month or less, to reflect the political landscape of Kenya currently. So here it goes. Hatch not the good egg, for the world has no place for brittle shells. And if there were, it would be between two slices of sandwich before a rush on the Monday traffic, tragic. Hatch not the good egg, for the talons wait from afar. The farmer watches his wallet, the cook whets their knife, and the vultures hoovers the village, for even the carcass shall know no rest. Hatch not the good egg, for the world sees not the good in red. The hungry just see an omelette, the greedy a couple Benjamins, the manipulative a pawn, and the vindictive a chance for vengeance. So peck on the golden egg and drink up the yolk. For I assure you, the world is not worthy of the good egg. And the chick knows no pain if the chick rests in peace. You have not the heart to see the good egg beat into a frittata. Neither the good chick grabbed in a soup, nor the good chicken turned into soup. I assure you, you have not the heart to see the good hen chewed up, limb by limb and bone by bone. and spat at your feet from the high table. For when all in your arms is just a casket with no soul, you will hold onto your womb for the pains, not of labor, but of loss, and affirm that the world is not worthy of good eggs. Yeah, that is the end of it.
Thanks, Roy. That was very powerful, very beautiful. And just as Roy's poem, The Good Egg, is speaking to his homeland, I have another one that speaks to my homeland of Iran. And it's called The Silent Saxol Tree. So in Roy's poem, there was so much in terms of the forces of innocence and the forces of inside versus outside and the struggles between those. And I'm going to follow by reading The Silent Saxol. And just as a background, Saxol is a tree that grows in the desert, mostly in the Middle East, but also in China. And it actually is very resistant to drought. And you also kind of find it very frequently in the deserts of Iran. From time to time, you will see the silent Saxol tree with its roots embraced by the ochre clay sand, by the barren land bearing not even a pearl of water. From time to time, you will see the silent Saxol, its leaves motionless, its body still as a steel pillar. You will dream of the dance of the swaying poplars by the singing river. The silent Saxol, too, dreams of laughter with the wind, yet its whispers may crack the fragile shell of the land, while in its tears, a wild beige rose might grow in silver silence. Thank you.
Mm.
So that is my favorite poem from Maryam, because at first I didn't have the context of the tree, but then after she explained it, I got the imagery, and it really painted a good picture, like a vivid picture to me. Yeah. So I'll move swiftly to my next poem. It's called The Mist. And just a little bit of context. I wrote this poem a few weeks before graduation, and I wanted it to reflect the mood of some during the graduation period. Okay, here we go. Mist, 9:32 a.m. She stood in the big, busy yard and yawned as couples walked hand in hand to class. Friends laughed and hugged as she, for some warmth, yawned. Jumping into the thick snow, she cursed while letting the scooter pass. Fall semester, first class, becoming a ghost 101. It wasn't a calling, it wasn't a plan. It wasn't a choice not to be part of the clan. Sociological reorganization, you embraced into the fold or spat out. Going over her diary, she wondered what recipe of friendships she missed as her ghost glided past a group of chatty homies. Did I? Didn't I? Did I smile at everyone I met today? Maintained a happy face to look approachable? Didn't I join the loudest table at lunch and brushed up on my crypto talk? To talk of the secret invite-only final clubs? Did I ask them their names and made the effort to remember them? And not ask if they also click while they speak? The gods must be crazy. She wondered as her ghost hand flew over her journal. It is 4 years now, and the mist is clearing. She will no longer roam the social halls of Throb. A time for the gown and cap. Maybe she'll finally come into vision. Maybe when her name is called, it will happen. Or maybe when she throws up her cape, her presence will be acknowledged. It was the whispered name, asked out of politeness, but soon forgotten. At least she got a degree, although a couple of friends too would have been cool. As her footprints clear in the snow, so was her memory of having been there. With just a paper and a ton of UC emails to show for it. She looked back longingly, hoping to be seen, then disappeared into the darkness. Mist.
Thank you, Roy. That was also very powerful. And I think what is so outstanding in this poem to me is the detail of each emotion and how much attention Roy spends to each of those. And so Roy began with a moment in time, let's call it the present, and then he anticipated the future, asking questions of what would happen next. And I would like to follow the same, perhaps, flow in terms of time with the next poem that's called Fragments of a Breath. A breath so alive turns into reminiscence, then a memory, later a flashback, down the road a marking, a timestamp, and in the end, history, worn out and misty. After the edges of the papers have turned yellow, yellow corners curled up, cover covered with dust, sheets wrinkled like our skin, skin turned into dust, when the ink is dissolved and so is our blood, when the soft flesh is gone, and when flowers have grown from our nourishment, when coyotes are satisfied, crows' sunset feast adjourned, when we are dispersed through the river currents, on the wings of the wind, on yellow pollens a bee carries, and the body of a flower, and the warm blood of an albatross flying free, and the deep blue of a heron's wings, and the azure of eyes born anew, and the breath of a singing robin. A breath is still alive, multiplied, sun, relived, reborn, reimagined, without us. For us, it does not need the self-sufficient force running free and feral. Thank you.
That was great.
Thanks, Mary.
So when I first heard that poem, it gave me hope, because after my poem, which is like being forgotten, and then the poem swiftly transitioned to how transient it is by describing the breath. So the breath and the mist almost related, but then she ended the poem with hope. Well, so that is why I love the poem the most. And so after that, the next poem I'll go to is a poem about a moment in life when you suffer a loss and you are in a loop. So I called it Hell Loop. And here it goes. I'm perfectly fine. I mean, I get sad sometimes, mostly when I am awake. I hardly sleep. My head is filled with churning thoughts, endless streams of what ifs, and a bottomless pit of regrets and guilt. Each night is a dark horror film, And in every scene, I'm the victim and the villain of self-blame. Not running fast enough to escape my woes. I'm the defendant and the prosecutor of my own hearing, and I proudly hang the noose tight around the defendant, me. No way home. From the looming clouds of grief and choking waves of guilt, and every day, my broken self shatters more. Bare feet race on a hot lava trail. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. I'm perfectly fine. I mean, I get sad sometimes, mostly when I'm sober. So a glass parts not from my lips. Stay hydrated, you say. So I keep a bottle under my pillow and crates more to bury my sorrow. My misery reflects in my liquor, so I gulp it down as soon as it lands. I get no time for hangover, for I don't wait long enough for our memories to flood back. So I drown them externally in liquor before I drown internally in grief. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. I'm perfectly fine. I mean, I only don't cry to sleep on days that start with you. And I moved on, and I have been okay too. I mean, I still set tables for two, buy tickets for two, identify spots for two, book for two. I still hear your voice in the middle of the night knocking on my door. I still maintain our morning routine and ice cream Sundays, face scrub and that corny Netflix show. But I'm perfectly fine. I mean, the nights are colder and the bed unnecessarily bigger, the house quieter and the movie night scarier. The food tastes bland and the ceilings only echo the emptiness of my soul. But I assure you, I'm perfectly fine. I mean, I cry to sleep. Sorry, try to sleep. Never mind. I cry to sleep trying to sleep so that tomorrow I will wake up just fine.
Great.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Roy. Very good.
I remember this one the first time you read it, Roy. I thought, oh my God, he needs to get over to the mental health service immediately. But of course, you're perfectly fine. Yes.
Art is not life.
Had a little Frank O'Hara in there.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. And as everyone has said, that is extremely powerful. And I think dealing with a subject as difficult as a loss, the way you do, is just a very deep talent. And I think I sort of want to follow this poem by another poem of mine called The Two Apples. It sort of deals with the same anticipation of loss and how to really grasp this extremely forceful concept. I left two apples on the side of the road, ruby and bright, shining with the same spark of the stars in our eyes, their perfect shape melting in my hands. I would forever taste that sweet autumn afternoon. I could not. I am too ephemeral to bear that eternal scent. I can't let it infuse me. To the October breeze, I give it away.
Mm.
That poem, I don't know if it had the same effect on you guys, but I was just getting settled into the poem when it ended. So I'd suggest Maryam to write a sequel for it to give us more context on that. Yeah, but I liked how she could suck us in to the poem in so few words and then leave us in that world. going on with that theme, I'm going to read another poem, which was the first poem I read during poemicals when I came to Lowell. It's called When the Last Flames Die Out. So I added a subtitle like Don't Hold On to the Cold Ashes. So here it goes. When the last flames die out. Dear fire, that warms my heart in this cold winter, that dances to the windy whispers of my thoughts, that listens to my long reflective stories, that glows even in the dark of the night, that lights up my dark nights. And although my sight can't catch you, for I have none, I still feel your warmth, your presence, your joy in the cold winter. Yes, you fire. Yes, you fire, that I will sit beside each night and feed wood all night not to die out, and trust you with my hair not to get singed, nor my clothes to get burned. So I open up to you to drive away the cold without making me sweat, to enter my bone marrow and flow in my veins. Draw me close, you fire. Draw me close, you fire, in a warm embrace in this winter night. Hold me in your bosom and protect me from the howling and laughing hyenas. When the flames die out and the fire dances no more, consider my lack of sight and don't leave me in the dark. When the glow dims and my stories bring sleep, let me know of your departure, lest I remain holding on to the cold ashes of your absence. Let me warm the round, smooth stones to drive cold under my armpits when you're gone, before my heart freezes over. Thank you.
When the flames die out. So that was very, very beautiful, right? And you're speaking to the fire, and I'm just gonna follow by a poem that was written perhaps after a certain flame was gone out. And yeah, this one is called Infinite Dunes. In the presence of light, it is only light we can sing of. In its absence, its luminous memory. In the fleeting warmth of a candlelight, there's only a few tales to read. In the hushed light, thousands untold to whisper. In every grain of sand that falls, only a few glances to exchange. In the broken hourglass, dunes of them to long for. We are bound momentarily as grains blowing on the wind, as tales exchanged, as glances merged. In time we shimmer until the hourglass breaks. And forever now, we are infinite dunes.
Great stuff.
So that poem actually, when I imagine dunes, the first time I saw dunes, it's like it's a collection of sand they hold together, but then when the wind blows, they all might go separate ways or might meet at a certain point back together with the other sand that were there. So I imagined myself as the sun as I listened to that poem, and I was like, we know not when the wind will blow, so just hold on and make friends. And yeah, so that's a mantra I've been trying to keep in school at the moment of dunes. So the next poem I'm going to read follows closely the previous ones. And I assure you all I'm perfectly fine. So even as I'm going down this path. So here it goes. The title is How Do I Feel? How do I feel? I feel a sense of inevitability, that it doesn't matter what I want to do. The world is what it is. The loss is permanent. She will always be gone. I will always be sad. She will eventually move on. I will still be waiting for her home. To her, I will be a vague memory she lost. But to me, she will be the only happy memory I got. How do I feel? I feel a sense of ambivalence, that I am sad she is gone, but happy it was her will, her wish. Love is what it is, a hanging balance needing a halfway meeting. That however much I ask, I will never know how much love would have been enough. So I will always look back to the good old days. That my eyes will be too teary to look at the happier, brighter days. That however much I search for what I did or for what I did not, time moves forward for some, in loops for some, and never for me. So how do I feel? I am concerned that I won't be able to contain myself, that I still haven't seen the worst of who I am, that I might be broken and stay broken, and however skilled the potters are, they will never put my pieces back together, for the centerpiece was you. That I clumsily hold onto the shards of broken pieces and juggle with the memories of you, of us, pricking to hold and painful to let go. That when I think it is the last of the 9 circles of hell, I descend deeper. So how do I feel? I yearn to feel something. Now I long to feel nothing. For the emptiness and the feel all hurt the same. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you, Roy, again for another poem that is very powerful and very beautiful. And I think this one actually exemplifies what I was sort of speaking about in the beginning of how immediate Roy's poetry is, and how wonderfully he captures what is so uncertain. You know, he's questioning, how do I feel? And I don't know, like when I try to go and write something in my journal and I'm feeling very overwhelmed, that's often very difficult to capture. And I think Roy is extremely talented for being able to do this so beautifully. And so the next poem that I'm going to read is one that has been very special, I think, in my journey of writing poetry and also just starting to write poetry. This is the very first poem that I read in poemicals when I was a sophomore. And that was what gave me the courage to come back and share more of my work. But I was actually never, I would say, courageous enough to come back and read the same poem. So I've been kind of leaving it aside for a while. But I'm gonna just attempt a second reading of it in public today. It's called The Wall. The door is closed, the curtains drawn. Particles glow in the beam of light that creeps into the lonely room. Our lonely room. The lonely room that has no tongue to speak its loneliness. our lonely room that has no eyes to cry its emptiness, our lonely room that stands brick by brick by the force of the mortar that wants to scream from the pain of the weight of our heaviness, our bitterness, our simultaneous loneliness. The door is closed. The wall watches itself and the hollow eternity of the mirror. It watches its pale white body, the pale white body that encloses our bodies from time to time. It watches and gasps at its fantastic incapability to enclose our souls. It watches and gasps at the fantastic hypocrisy of its role to enclose and not enclose at the same time. To be a mask of togetherness. To be the weakest and sturdiest frame, to be the interior reflection of our exteriors. Only our exteriors. The exteriors that we choose for the sake of the wall, for the sake of the pale white wall, for it has to enclose something, and that something can only, of course, can only be our exteriors. Why, you might ask? First close the door. The white wall shall not hear what I'm about to say. Now we are safe. So you asked why? Because we fear that, God forbid, a human eye might see through the red watery eyes of another. Because we fear that, God forbid, we will panic at the sight of such eternity that surpasses any wall, any lock, any chain. Because we fear that, God forbid, that eternity would engulf us. Because we fear, my friend, we fear the eternity, the power, the love of our interiors. We fear the infinity of our smooth, calm, human interiors. We fear the infinity of our human souls that can't possibly be enclosed. So we stare, and the throatless, tongueless white wall screams its heart out, and the mirror echoes the quiet shriek in the hollow shell of the room. My friend, now that we have heard the wall's plea, let us do it a favor. Tonight, when the moon comes out, we'll take a brush and a bucket of paint, pitch black. We'll cover every inch of its body, and we'll take it down kindly, brick by brick. Then we'll sit under the moonlight with our eternal interiors watching the infinite, borderless universe that would not fit in that room that is no longer there. For we are, and we now can admit for the first time, humans. And the tired bricks rest in peace.
Hey.
So that is the poem that in our last meeting, we read it last and we agreed that it should close the reading because it's so powerful. I don't think I could do a reading after that.
Right.
Yeah, so I want you to take a moment and just reflect on what you've had now, the wall. It's the best. I can't do a reading after that. Yeah.
Thanks, Roy. You are too kind. You certainly could. So please, if yes.
Well, how do we conclude? Such
With applause.
mastery of metaphor and mastery of what is in fact fiction. How do I feel? The only way to describe how do I feel is through fiction, because it's something which actually evades us. It's like that white room, which needs to be painted black. So, Jai Baba, are you here? Would you like to make a few concluding remarks before we close and thank these great poets?
It's
so powerful. And I'm not sure if I have adequate words for this, but you take me into territories I'm not as familiar with, or I think I am, and yet I'm kind of lost in terms of how to articulate. I feel, but I lack the words to express these particular directions that I'm being. It's as if I'm flowing into spaces that I myself may experience or might experience yet, or may have experienced but have not had the capacity to articulate. And therefore, I'm enriched, but I also feel a great sense of weight. There is a lot of what I see, it comes out as immense degrees of loss. And yet, in that immense loss, there's not it's not a surrender to a particular circumstance that both of them face at different times in these poems that carry at often periods of anxiety, of loss, but they don't seem to be beaten by it. In fact, quite the reverse. And I think some of that comes from their capacity to heal and share with people like me and others who I can then share with them. There's several times in these poems I found the word, I think you used the word embrace, and I felt a certain embrace even though there are areas of non-familiarity. Or I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I'm trying to express my degree of incapacity, let's put it this way. So help me, somebody, pick up where I'm letting off or where I'm trying to.
Well, that incapacity, I think, is the locus. It's the place of poetry. Poetry is always expressed or exhibited or manifest to replace something which is missing. Just like language replaces our primary mental and emotional loss. So Maryam and Roy are describing these worlds, one very immediate and one far less immediate, but more celestial, perpetual, if you like. So Maryam, Roy, thank you so much for transforming this last hour together into something really unique and totally memorable. I can't express how wonderful you are as young poets. This is a credit to Lowell House and to Diana, who was our overseer for such a long time, but to the community of Lowell House, the friendship there, the conversations. So Roy and Maryam, thank you so very much.
I have a request, if I may.
Thank you very much.
What's that?
I have a request.
Yes.
Because these are poems that I have met for the first time. I think some of you have known them before. Are there any way in which you mean to share them, or are they accessible to us outside the readings that you've shared with us?
Well, Jai Baba, well, first of all, thank you so much for your very kind words. The plan is to upload these, actually this reading, to YouTube. So it will be available for viewing later on. And we can certainly think about other ways to make it available as well.
Oh, there's a second book coming, yes?
It's in the making, yes, hopefully, sometime soon. Yeah.
So we'll
This
have
really has been such a treat tonight, I will say. I mean, both of you I've heard read in, more fragmentary ways over the years, but wow, to have you in conversation with one another, going back and forth and expressing some of that, what Kevin sees really as the place where poetry is. Where the infinite number of sands in the seashore is somehow captured within the hourglass which breaks. Of course it does. And it's, it's really wonderful. I learn a lot from this, and from the way in which you, Roy, repeat your question or repeat your thought. So I'm perfectly fine. So,
Yeah.
and to speak to the fire. Oh, I love that. Anyway, thank you so very much. I was going through some old journals this morning, and I found some fragments of things I had written when I was in my early 20s. And I thought, ooh, I did much better then than I might now. Anyway, so let me see if I can scrounge them up again for some moment. Kevin, I will try.
We would love that.
Please do, Diana.
Mhm.
And thank you so much again for your support and kindness, really all throughout these years. It's been a wonderful force, really.
And you are now right here in Cambridge, are you, please?
That's right. That's right. I'm here in Cambridge. I will be here for the next decade, probably. So
Well, you have to find something other than the Gulf Coast to look out at, and for it to be your muse as you.
that's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll be looking for that continuously. Yes.
All right, everybody. Roy, thank you so much. Maryam, thank you so much. And we will meet again next week in the Senior Common Room at 6 p.m. in person. And I hope some of you can join us.
Yes. Thank you.
Kevin, is it contemplated that there will be some other opportunities for gatherings on Zoom?
I think so, but at the moment, we're just re-entering the waters of the Senior Common Room itself. So
Of course, yeah.
let's see how that proceeds. But it's great to see you, Ken.
Yes.
Great to see all of you. I hope everyone had a good summer.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Kevin.
Thank you